what happens when there is resource scarcity. There are battles, there is anarchy, there is war, and there are brutal forms of control by gangs. And then there are environmental refugees, people who are victims of law, political chaos, resource depletion. So these are all climate refugees or environmental refugees. They are mass migrations. In an earlier lesson, we watched a video in which uh, the speaker was telling us about Africa, where from people migrate from depleted areas into other towns and cities, adding to the population, uh, increasing the problem of resource depletion. And when that place is depleted, they move on to the next. So, mass migrations are very common when there is environmental crisis, and there can be any number of extreme climate events which cause these mass migrations, such as rising sea levels or extreme weather, portraying the challenges and ethical dilemmas that arise. This theme also critiques current policies on immigration and border control, highlighting the inequalities exacerbated by climate impacts. So it also has some political and social dimensions, this idea of mass migration because of climate issues and climate impact, and it shows the increase in inequalities in populations, and the sort of growing differences between the rich and the poor, between the haves and the have nots, and the sufferings of migrants and refugees as they try to force their way into different countries. We did discuss this earlier. At places they are not wanted, sometimes they are at the mercy of um, toots and illegal people out there, and they resort to all kinds of illegal means to get into countries like USA and UK, and they suffer dire consequences. Sometimes they are killed on the way, other times they are turned back from the borders. So, in this form of writing, the challenges of political systems around the world are um, also mentioned, how governments are trying to deal with this issue of refugee influx, and it is a very complex and complicated issue because everybody is reeling under the impact of climate change and overpopulation and overcrowding, um, lack of employment. So there are so many other issues connected with this idea of massive migration. Technological solutions and consequences. As Bill Gates has mentioned, that technology could assist in reversing climate impact. That is a very debatable question. Can it, or is it always going to be a source of greater climate issues? Because we already know that computing uses gallons and gallons of water. Every second that we use the computer and the internet, the gallons of water are being used. So, and then it is leading to a lot of exploitation of labor also. So, how does technology solve these solutions? Uh, when we study deep ecology later on, we will see this point of view discussed in detail, where deep ecologists do not agree with this statement that technology can assist in reversal of climate impact. They feel technology and industrialization are the source of the problem, and toning them down and limiting their control and limiting our dependence on them is the way that climate change can be reduced. They argue with this idea that AI can help reduce climate impact. So, science fiction explores both the potential of technology to mitigate climate change, geoengineering, renewable energy resources, the unforeseen side effects of these interventions, as we saw in this movie that we discussed, The Snowpiercer. They were trying to reverse the climate. They were trying to lessen global warming, and there was an error, and the Earth went into an ice age, which was sort of unlimited and indefinite in its time. So there can be unforeseen side effects of using technology also. So that part has also been tackled by science fiction. These narratives caution against over reliance on technology and underscore the need for balanced solutions. Governmental and corporate influence. So, science fiction critiques corporate interest and governmental inaction, often illustrating how political corruption or corporate greed exacerbate environmental degradation. So, an example is Margaret Atwood's Mad Adam trilogy. So, science fiction critiques technology also, the power of technology, it critiques the power of the government force and the corporate forces. So, and this is in Margaret Atwood's novel Mad Adam trilogy, besides many other science fiction works. What is science fiction's influence on climate discourse? It raises awareness by using captivating narratives and immersive worlds. Science fiction effectively communicates complex scientific ideas and environmental issues to a broad audience. So, where science is a remote subject and not everybody can understand such details as the science of climate change or the science of the greenhouse gases, when it is presented in science fiction, especially soft science fiction, then the ideas are conveyed and that science is sort of toned down and explained in simpler ways, and there's a broader audience that understands it and understands the issues of climate, and it becomes still more clearer when this fiction is transferred into climate films. And this accessibility makes science fiction a valuable tool for raising awareness and inspiring environmental activism. So, who else could talk better about science than science fiction? So, science is the background, and they tell you about the science of climate and the science of various living things, living nature. So, all the factual science is explored, and that makes it very interesting and very colorful. It is also very inspiring and something that is very good for young children and young learners. It is a good introduction to science for them to develop an interest in science and climate from an early stage onwards. So, it is a good alternative to being forced to learn science facts by rote or science of climate by rote. Uh, Science fiction enlightens, informs, and also gets people to think about their environment, to reflect about their place in the universe as human beings, showing numerous possibilities of over dependence on technology, showing the outcomes of this over dependence in the form of dystopian futures, in the form of altered climates, and there are various subjects that are considered in science fiction. It could be psychology, that is impact on humans, or it could be anthropology, or it could be space science. So the various sciences are taken up, various subjects of study which may not even belong to the field of science. They may be from social sciences, but together they form material or content that is important, especially for young people, to develop awareness and awakening. Science fiction helps to shape public perception. Fictional depictions of climate impacts can shape public perception, influencing how people view climate change and the urgency of addressing it. So, as we know, science fiction. So, as we all know, that science fiction uses science to write certain stories, and it can be the science of climate, or the science of animals, or the science of living things. But the very idea of climate, when that is conveyed, it sort of addresses reality to the readers, and convinces them of the urgency to address it. So it is important that science fiction be put in schools for young learners. In the same way, science fiction movies also should be made more popular in India. So, especially the famous films like Interstellar and The Day After Tomorrow, they have brought climate issues to mainstream audiences, sparking discussions and influencing environmental discourse. So, such movies which are based on climate fiction, they get people talking, and in today's day or an age of media, where we have so many social networking sites, the discussion goes around about environment, and that is important for awakening people, for making them aware of the urgency of the issue. Inspiring innovation. Science fiction often anticipates technological advancements, inspiring scientists and inventors. So, this reminds me of this novel, The Invisible Man, which is a well written novel by H.G. Wells. And there is some kind of scientific experiment, and somebody has learnt how to turn invisible. So, this story, The Invisible Man, it is extremely interesting. But when a person turns invisible and he is involved in wrongdoing, uh, can he be punished? Is there a moral issue there? So, this novel also sort of analyzes some ethical issues, that what technology can lead to when it is misused. So, they are inspiring innovations in science fictions, from robots to semi-human um, characters, to aliens, and so they are all and then advance in creating new inventions, as there was the time machine in H.G. Wells' novel. So there are many others, and a new kind of humanity is created. We have that novel, Never Let Me Go. We see a totally changed atmosphere because of technological advancement. So the ideas of solar energy, electric vehicles, sustainable architecture, they were all once ideas of, in science fiction, speculative ideas, but have become real world innovations influenced by these stories. So, this is very interesting. At one time, these were part of science fiction. These traveled to other planets, travel to the stars. These were this telecommunication and uh, solar and renewable forms of energy. They were also all parts of science fiction, and today they become a reality. So, let us discuss some notable works in climate centric science fiction. The Wind Up Girl by Paolo Bacigalupi, set in the future where bioengineering crops dominate and fossil fuels have been depleted. This novel explores the complexity of genetic engineering and resource scarcity. So this novel, Oryx and Crake, also it talks of about the creation of a new kind of world where, because of genetic remodeling, new species are created. So which and in the same way, new kind of species from human beings are also created, and which is reflective of irony also, of human greed and ambition and technological power. All those things are there. So Oryx and Crake's other part of the trilogy, Mad Adam trilogy. So this also examines a world where genetic engineering and environmental degradation have led to societal breakdown. So science fiction, it predicts the future also, but it talks about the present problems also, the present crisis also. So we have already been aware of genetic remodeling, of this genetic engineering, and these genetically engineered new species of animals. In reality, there is a sheep there, and there is a very highly debatable and ethical idea of genetically modeled human beings being created. We already know about um, uh, fetuses being frozen, and how all these things are being discussed today. And so it science fiction discusses a lot of the relevant issues and tries to go one step forward and tries to predict what will happen in the future, what will be the outcome of so much technology, of so much dependence of technology. It In Oryx and Crake, life was in a kind of a plastic life in a bubble. It was not a kind of real life. Everything was remodeled, whether it was food or whether their lives. So nothing was really convincingly human in that. So science fiction with the climate ideas deals with such stories and deals with such ideas. So when we look at Liz Jensen's novel, The Rapture, there too there's a blending of evangelism, psychology, science, and climate change. There is an intriguing link between the demented brain of Bethany Krall and her ability to predict natural disasters. And this can be considered a very interesting develop in science fiction. Very interesting idea in science fiction, how psychology and science fiction come together. And at the background also, it's taking society also into consideration, the state of Bethany's mind, her current state um, as a notorious criminal who has murdered her own mother in a brutal manner, that has a past behind it, that has a past of unstable parents, parents who show a certain kind of selfishness and who are only considered with their prominence and their importance in society. as her father is an evangelist. He's the head of his church, and he's talking about the rapture, kind of revelation, when God will call humans to Him. So there's this obsession with religion, and so we work with certain kind of obsessions, uh, and the total neglect of environment. So if you think about this in terms of deep ecology, we see the flaws here which lead to climate impacts. There's a total irreverence and total negligence towards nature, towards environment, and one is only concerned about oneself. So what deep ecology tells us is to be open to the environment, to see the world as a whole, to be involved with the world, and that is great beauty, great love, and great fulfillment. Those things are lacking in these characters, and therefore Bethany is an ugly representation of what the parents stand for, of the parents' drives and ambitions. And in some lurid way, she represents the fierce side of nature, which must have its way, which must have its revenge. She hates human beings. She always has foul language on her lips. She does not spare even the protagonist of the novel, who is her doctor and who takes care of her. So this lady is on a wheelchair. Again, we have representations in this novel of humanity that is helpless before nature, and she snarls at this lady and calls her spas, in insult, because she's spastic. She's uh, paralyzed below her hips, and she's confined to a wheelchair, and yet she has been sent to see into uh, uh, Bethany's case. And Bethany is so notorious that there has to be always a bodyguard with the doctor, and she calls her Spas. But at a later stage, this lady and Bethany try to understand each other. So we can see that how climate and social issues and that greed for power and that over dependence on technology are there, and they lead to the terrifying effects of climate change. So let me read a quotation from this book, The Rapture. And Liz Jensen says that it's better not to create a new world or to have another generation when one has become so selfish and one is not concerned about the future. What kind of future will be given to this new generation? What is the sense in producing another generation? So it's this character who is paralyzed, half body, and she's unable to, she's infertile, she will never have children. So there is colossal arrogance he maintains in the assumption that humans will last forever. If one looks at the planet's life across billions of years rather than in terms of humankind's meager history as a dominant species, we will see that our presence on Earth has lasted the blink of an eye. We are the agents of our own destruction, and when we are gone, extinguished by our own heedless quest for expansion, the planet will not mourn us. Indeed, it will have cause to rejoice. Today, the human species stands at the brink of a new mass extinction, which will see, if not its disappearance, then its extreme marginalization. For the first time in human history, the destruction already apparent is global. In times past, children and grandchildren were seen as a blessing, a sign of faith in the future of the gene pool. Now it would seem that the kindest thing to do for our grandchildren is to refrain from generating them. So we can see how climate fiction deals with social issues and deals with technology and the outcomes of over dependence on technology and dystopian futures, and it ponders on some philosophical and ethical questions too. Let us stop here, and we will continue in the next lesson. I hope this lesson has been inspiring, and you have learned something about how climate fiction is dealt by science fiction. Thank you.